So coming up this weekend, of course, is going to be UFC Fight Night, headlined by Derrick and Tallison Teixeira in Nashville. Headlined by Teixeira in his second ever UFC fight, as he does take on Derrick, who has much more experience than him, and I do think it does make for a very interesting matchup at the top. Now, of course, I have done a prediction video on this card, and I did that prediction video with graphics that I made myself, and I do appreciate the input that a lot of you guys did give me in the comments. It seemed like most of you guys really liked it, but also some of you guys did say that you did miss just having Tapology in the background, because I think a lot of people, when they watch my videos, they quite like to look at the stuff in the background of Tapology, so it was mostly positive reception, but it also was a little bit mixed. And I do have a plan in the future to try and kind of get the best of both worlds, like maybe have a screenshot of the Tapology in the background of the graphics, but for this video in particular, because I am actually at the moment starting to look into Contender Series, if you can believe it. I know it is about 6 weeks away, but, you know, I want to be on top of things. I was on top of things last year, and I do think I started out pretty well on the Contender Series. I would like to repeat that again, so you can expect Dana White's Contender Series Week 1 predictions, early predictions, coming out pretty soon. And another thing that has come out in the last couple of weeks actually has been a second channel. I've started to just do a second channel. It's called Artem at Home, and in that one I'm just kind of talking about whatever I want to talk about that's not UFC predictions related. It kind of is more of like an opinions sort of news sort of channel that I'm just gonna upload whatever I want to. I'll be honest on there, I'm not really too worried about what the content is. It's just gonna be like another little outlet for me to make content, which I think should be pretty exciting, so I really would appreciate it if you subscribed to get that channel to 100 subscribers soon. And of course, the next thing I do want to say is I'm in a good mood, man. I feel like recently things have been looking up. I passed all of my exams. One of my exams I don't have the result for, which is a shame. I'm still waiting on that. And I feel like kind of life is like, it's looking up, you know? It's looking up. Now, one thing I have made the big mistake of is I'm using Chrome. So I have a lot of advertisements popping up right now, but it's too late. We're committed. I'm going to try and make this quick as well. I don't want to waste anyone's time talking about things I've already talked about before. I do think Fatima Klein beats Melissa Martinez. Stylistically, a bit of a nightmare matchup for Martinez. Now, she does actually have a world championship kickboxing background. I believe it was WAKO, which is the style of kickboxing she won the belt in. But I just think that Fatima Klein, her wrestling, her grappling is elite. Her one loss was to Jasuda Vicious on short notice. She looked pretty good in that fight, despite being upper weight class. I think Klein is a legit prospect, only 25 years old, and I think she could look quite good in the future. I think Klein submits Martinez in the first 2 rounds. Mike Davis takes on Mitch Ramirez. I think this is a step down in competition for Mitch Ramirez. Now, do I necessarily think that it is a minus 900 sort of money line on Mike Davis? Not really, but at the same time, when I do look at this fight, I do think that Mike Davis does have the fight covered really anywhere. Now, the thing about Davis is he is very inactive. He did have a couple of performances recently against Siam where he got out-wrestled and kind of just beaten everywhere, I'll be honest. But apart from that, we have seen very good wrestling offense out of Mike Davis. Ramirez is a restless striker. He kind of does a bit of everything, but I think that Davis is covered kind of no matter really where the fight does go. I think Davis should be able to beat Ramirez here. It's a step down in competition. And now, everyone's favorite underdog for the week, it seems, Walter Walker does take on Kennedy Nzechukwu, and I am more than aware that Kennedy Nzechukwu is a very volatile fighter in the way that he's just so inconsistent. You know, like one moment he's getting knocked out by a gust of wind against Da Un Young, and then the next fight he's showing one of the craziest granite shins we've ever seen at 205 pounds. I just don't know what's up with him. However, since moving up to heavyweight, he's looked good. Now, great analysis here, guys. If Kennedy Nzechukwu keeps the fight on the feet, he wins the fight. It's kind of as simple as that. Walter Walker, a couple of submission wins in a row now, a couple good performances, one over my boy, Junior Tuffer, which I'm heartbroken about. But anyways, I do think that as long as the fight's on the feet, Nzechukwu's going to have a massive advantage. Walter Walker's striking, it was exposed badly by Bursky, but actually before then, it was actually exposed by Alex Nicholson, which is why I think I picked Walker in that fight, but I really wish I picked Bursky in hindsight. But, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. Nzechukwu is my pick. I think he wins by knockout. I think he wins by knockout in the first couple of rounds. I genuinely just don't think Walker's striking is good. Now we move up to Lauren Murphy versus Eduardo Mora. If this fight goes the way that I think it should go, I think Eduardo Mora wins this fight by submission relatively early, with top control, with an arm triangle. Now, Lauren Murphy, she did out-wrestle Miesha Tate. She did. Now, I went into that breakdown talking about Miesha Tate's wrestling credentials, and Lauren Murphy just shit all over them. She just did. And then she's disappeared for a couple of years. She's nearly 42 years old now. I just really would be surprised if Eduardo Mora can't take down Murphy and then dominate on top from there. I do think Mora is a legit prospect. It is pretty bad that she couldn't make 115 multiple times. That is a stain on her record, but I do think at 125, she's going to look good. I think Mora wins by finish in this fight. I am picking a lot of finishes to happen on this card. Now, Jake Matthews fights against Chidi Njokwani. It was just revealed that I believe Jacob is picking Jake Matthews as his lock of the week for We Want Picks. I'm sorry, Jacob. I am picking Chidi Njokwani in this matchup. I do quite like him at 170. Now, he has been struggling to make the weight a little bit. He's getting older, which is always going to be a red flag, but I think he's a good fighter, man. It wasn't that long ago he was having a good swang and bang with Gregory Rodriguez, but aside from that, at 170 pounds, what Chidi Njokwani does best is utilizes range. He's got a very good Muay Thai style. He's got very good power. Yes, you could see Jake Matthews go out there and maybe exploit a bit of grappling against Njokwani. That could happen. But I think that the takedown defense so far has held up. And the thing about Jake Matthews is, even though I do really like him, and I have actually met him before, he is really inconsistent. You know, one day he's outboxing Andre Fialho, if you remember him, absolute knockout specialist from Portugal, until he got chinned himself. And then by Jake Matthews, I think, actually. And then the next fight, he's getting pieced up and beaten bit by bit by Matthew Semmelsberger. He made Matthew Semmelsberger look like Israel Adesanya out there. I am scared about that. Now, Matthews could look great, but he could look bad. He's just so inconsistent, kind of like in Njokwani. I think Chidi Njokwani is my pick to win this fight. I think he wins by decision or maybe even knockout. Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin. I will be honest, guys. I expected this fight to be cancelled. If you guys are unaware, recently one of Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland's teammate was in a fight. I believe it was for Tough Enough, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty good regional promotion. And he lost. And what happened was, like, the guy that beat his teammate did like a little, like an X dance on it. I'm not familiar with WWE or whatever it is from. And Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland jumped the cage and started literally throwing combinations against the guy who won the fight and taunted them. And I was like, these guys are going to get banned for this. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, they genuinely went in there and started throwing combinations against them, trying to beat them up. Like, come on, guys. You're in the real world here. This ain't GTA. But it seems like Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland have both gotten away with it. I'm very surprised. I genuinely thought they were going to get banned by whatever sports commission is overseeing this. But it seems like, I guess they just don't give a shit. Which is fair enough. I think Chris Curtis wins this fight. You know, he's been practicing his combinations against guys that just beat his teammates. I think that against Max Griffin, he's the much better boxer. I mean, we know what Curtis is going to bring to the table. We do know what Max Griffin is going to bring to the table. Griffin is going to be the one pressuring forward. He always is. It doesn't matter who he's fighting. He even did it against Michael Morales, which is very impressive. And he had a pretty good performance against Morales, all things considered, right? But I do think Curtis now coming down to 170, I think that he should be able to beat Max Griffin here. I mean, I would be very surprised if he doesn't. You know, the fight's going to be on the feet. Curtis is good takedown defense, and as long as it is, I like Curtis's boxing. And then we move up to Junior Tafa taking on Tuco Tokos. I am doubling down. I am Tougher gang. You know, maybe it is to my own detriment because recently the Tougher gang hasn't been on a great run, but Gerard Tougher, the youngest Tougher, he's the one that's going to save us all. He's the best Tougher of the bunch. I know everyone said it was Junior Tougher, but there's more of them, and there's more on the way. But I do think that Junior Tougher in this fight genuinely has an opportunity to get a knockout. Now, the thing about Tuco Tokos is everyone I've kind of met likes Tuco Tokos. You know, Tuco Tokos is a guy that I believe does talk to a lot of people in the YouTube space, and, you know, like, he's never talked to me. Maybe he doesn't like me, but he probably definitely doesn't now that I'm picking against him. But, you know, I know everyone loves Tuco Tokos, and he's pretty fun, But at the same time, I just don't think that his striking is as good as Junior Tuffa's. I mean, I don't think that, on paper, Junior Tuffa is a top 10 glory kickboxing heavyweight. This guy, he did it. He was a very good kickboxer, and he did it by just throwing down. He didn't throw kicks, man. He just brawled with people. And, it hasn't looked great in the UFC, but he still did hurt Mo Usman in those moments. And he did still beat Sean Sharaf, who took him on short notice. And I think now coming down to 205 pounds, as much as I really don't love the move for him, I do think that his ceiling is higher at heavyweight, just given if you look at the light heavyweight division, it is actually quite tough to make a name for yourself in that div. I just think that Junior Tuffa has a striking advantage. If the fight's on the feet, I think Tokos is going to be there to get hit, and I think that Junior Tuffa can land on his chin. I think I'm picking Tuffa by KO. Once again, Tuko Tokos, very popular underdog out there. Personally, just not quite going to be going that way. Vitor Patrino fights against Austin Lane. I do think Patrino wins this one here, moving up to heavyweight. If he loses this fight, I think it's just all over for him, really. Patrino come into the UFC as a knockout artist all of a sudden. He just started wrestling heaps, and then he wrestled into an Anthony Smith guillotine, and then after that, he lost again to Dustin Jacoby by knockout. Not too sure if heavyweight is the move, but I think he does beat Austin Lane. Austin Lane is a good wrestler. He's a massive guy, 6'6", very athletic as well. I believe he was an NFL player at one point. And another thing about Lane, though, is he is decent at striking, but he is a bit slow on the feet, and he does not really get out of the pocket. This is the thing about Lane. This is why he's been knocked out so many times in the UFC so far, is he will close the distance, he will throw his combination, and he will not get out of the pocket. He will just stay there, and when you're taking on someone that hits hard, I think Vitor Patrino can knock out Lane in this matchup. I'm going to go with Patrino to knock out Austin Lane. Nate Landwehr versus Morgan Sherrier. Probably the fight of the night. If I was able to bet on the fight of the night, I think that this would be it. Nate Landwehr always going to be a live dog in there because he's so fun. But at the same time, I think that we can kind of look at the skill set of Sherrier and see what he has done against, in my opinion, better fighters than Nate Landwehr, and see that we can have Sherrier as our pick. I mean, what I'm talking about is Chepe Mariscal, by the way. But anyways, I think that Sherrier on this fight is the better striker. Nate Landwehr, he does have wrestling and grappling in him. We've seen that. I believe it was for M1 Challenge, which he fought for before coming into the UFC. We've seen that kind of in the UFC too, but it does seem like in moments when he does fight in front of a crowd, he wants to stand and bang. And if you're going to stand and bang with Sherrier is a very big guy for this weight class at 145 pounds. He's a very technical striker as well. And I do think if Nate Landwehr's going to do that at this point in his career at 37 years old, I don't really love it. I think that I'm going to be going with Sherrier in this matchup, keeps the fight on the feet, and I think that he does win a decision, and maybe, just maybe, he can crack the chin of Nate the Train later on in round 2 or 3. Now we move up to Garcia versus Calvin Kattar. I'm sorry, but anyways, I do think Garcia wins this one. I have always been worried, though, about Garcia's chin. I know that this is something I've talked about for years now, and it's never ever been proven correct, and at this point it feels like I'm just saying something that doesn't even exist, but you guys need to trust me. One day that chin will get cracked of Garcia. I've seen him knocked down on the regional scene. I've seen him knocked down by Charlie Ontiveros twice. I've seen him knocked out by Mahashate. I've seen him hurt too many times to not mention that, but I don't think that Calvin Kattar is that guy anymore to do that to him. Now, he did show pretty solid takedown defense, I will admit, against Yusuf Zalal. I think he defended all 8 of Yusuf Zalal's takedown attempts, but at the same time, he was losing on the feet. He got out-volumed on the feet. And I think against Steve Garcia, a guy that's massive, 145 pounds, this is a former lightweight, a guy that has good kickboxing from range, a guy that does have good wrestling as well. I just don't love the matchup for Calvin Kattar, I will be honest. I think that Garcia can win this fight by decision. I think he wins this fight by using wrestling as well as striking from range. And now we move up to Stephen Thompson fighting against Gabriel Bonfim. I did break down this fight, obviously, and I did say that I think that Dalby presented trouble to Bonfim in the same way that Thompson could, because they both have a very karate-heavy style. Now, of course, I have revisited the fight since a lot of you guys said in the comments section that I was a total idiot for that take, and I will admit, Yes, it was a bad take, but I feel like what I said was correct. I think I just delivered it in the wrong way. Now, I said that Thompson could have a chance as the underdog in this fight because the way that Bonf lost to Dalby was against a guy that had the exact same striking style. Dalby and Thompson are both karate strikers. Now, yes, you are correct, everyone that did correct me. Dalby didn't beat Bonf using his striking. He kind of just beat Bonf by surviving Bonf. Bonf gassed out in the second round. One could even argue potentially he even quit in the second round. But what happened was Dalby just survived against Bonf until Bonf gassed out. And then after that, Dalby just closed the distance and landed a bunch of knees to the finish. The thing is, though, with Thompson, if you do watch that Dalby fight, in the first round, Dalby is throwing head kicks that are landing on Bonf. Bonf's a very good boxer. I believe he is a national professional boxing champion. It's on his box rec anyway. He does have like a pretty good boxing background, amateur boxing background as well, but he can get hit by those high kicks. Do I think that 42-year-old Stephen Thompson is the one to do it? No, I just don't. I mean, if it's someone like Carlos Prates, I think then we can probably have a bit of a conversation, but this is odd matchmaking in my opinion. I really hope this isn't Thompson's retirement fight. I think there's a lot more appropriate matchups for Thompson to retire against. I think that Bonf beats Thompson though. He's going to do it with his wrestling and grappling as well, by the way. I don't think he does it on the feet. Now the main event. This is a long card. 12 fights. Feels like I've been talking forever. 16 minutes. Not that long. Some of my videos like 40. Anyways, Derrick Lewis, he takes on Tallison Teixeira. I have been picking Derrick Lewis and I still am. And the thing about me, and this is kind of like a bit of a flaw potentially in my prediction sort of style, and I will admit that this could be a flaw, because I'm seeing everyone picking Tallison Teixeira, but I really like to make my predictions based on evidence. And the thing about Teixeira is I just don't really have a sample size that I like to look at to then pick him to win this fight. Not only pick him to win this fight, pick him as a minus 260 favorite in this fight. You know, like if you watch his fight against Justin Tafa, yes, he just dominates Justin Tafa. He smokes him from range, he closes the distance, and then in the clinch, Justin Tafa just gets smoked with an elbow. Like, it's a very impressive performance, I am aware. But prior to that, his Contender Series performance against this guy called Arthur Lopez, who is not a good fighter, genuinely is not a talented fighter at all. And I know that he knocks him out very quickly. He's still standing and banging with this guy. And if you're going to stand and bang with Derrick Lewis, maybe you do come off best because Derrick Lewis is 40 years old. But at the same time, maybe you don't. And another thing as well that I would really want to just bring up in this fight is, once again, like, this is a flaw potentially with the way I pick fights. Maybe I need to make a video talking about like my process and stuff, because I do understand it's a little bit different to others. But I just kind of like, I just don't have evidence to pick Tallison Teixeira. This guy is coming into a UFC main event against a guy with 40 professional fights, with experience over nobody. You know, he hasn't beaten anybody, and that includes Justin Tafa, as much as it pains me to say. I can't do it. I'm picking Derrick Lewis. I'm picking Derrick Lewis to work in takedowns in this matchup. Yes, I am picking Derrick Lewis to wrestle. Yes, I'm aware that is a stretch, but he's been doing it recently. He has been wrestling recently. We've never seen Teixeira have to defend a takedown properly, and I think that it'll be interesting to see what Teixeira looks like in the second round, maybe even in the third round. The thing is about Derrick Lewis, though, he's never been known for being a cardio machine. Even if you go all the way back to his fight against Mark Hunt, he gassed out in the fourth round, and Mark Hunt finished him because of that. He's not a cardio machine. He just isn't. However, he did go 5 rounds with Jailton Almeida somewhat recently. Can you pick Derrick Lewis with confidence? Definitely not. But can you pick Tallison Teixeira with confidence? I definitely think not as well. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna pick Derrick Lewis as the big underdog. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Final thing to mention, of course, is actually 2 things. I'm gonna mention 2 things. The first thing is, if you do sign up to We Want Picks and you do sign up using my code ARTEM, you do get a 10% discount on your first month. And the next thing I'm going to say is we're nearly at 10,000 subscribers. I would appreciate it if you did subscribe. And with that being said, that's it. 19 minutes. Pretty fast. I'll see you guys in the next one.